Hi everyone, Marin here for lawnfawn. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for joining me on this new video. Today we are going to make those extra colorful cards showcasing the bunting background stencils and the draped ribbons stencil from the summer release. And I am going to mix them with previously released die sets. Mixing and matching new stuff with older stuff is one of my favorite things to do. It's a super fun exercise, and I hope that my cards will inspire you to shop your stash and mix items you already have with new products. So I am not going to use a lot of things compared to what I am used to. We have the ice cream use cream die set, the stitched cupcake die set, the Henry's ABCs and 1, 2, 3's die sets, and for the greetings, we have sweetest flavor and sweet friend. So I am going to start with the bunting background stencils. And one of my favorite things to do when I stencil is to do it on kraft cardstock. I like the look of it, and it varies from the stenciling on white cardstock. So I cut a 5.5 by 4.25 inches kraft panel. I placed it on my sticky mat to keep it still, with the bunting background stencil on top. And here I am starting by applying Yeti ink all over it. Doing this will make the colors really stand out on the kraft paper. So all the small flags are white. Now to create colorful flags, I am going to use the same stencil, but I am going to shift it a tiny bit to the right. You will see that it's going to create a white border on each flag, and it is an effect I really like. So I am using all the colors of the rainbow. I just replaced the red by pink, and since the flags are pretty small areas, I am using sponge daubers to apply the inks. I am applying the light shade first. Next, I am adding a little bit of the dark shade at the top of the flag, and then I am blending the inks with my lighter sponge dauber. So for the pinks, we have kitsch flamingo and picked raspberry. For the oranges, I have dried marigold and carved pumpkin. For the yellows, we have squeezed lemonade and mustard seed. For the greens, we have twisted citron and maudlin. For the aquas, we have salvage patina and peacock feathers. And for the purples, we have shaded lilac and wilted violet. So let's see how it looks. It really is gorgeous with all those beautiful colors, and the white borders bring dimension to each flag, and it looks great. Now we need to add strings between each flag, so I am taping the second bunting background stencil on my panel, and I am going to use Licorice smoke oxide ink to create the strings. For the 3 flowers or rosettes, I am keeping the stencil in place, and I am applying Yeti ink again to have that white border on each flower, just like the flags. Now, same as before, I am going to shift my stencil a tiny bit to the right, and I am going to use my kitsch flamingo and picked raspberry oxide inks to color each flower. So we are done with the inking. Let's remove the stencil because now we are going to add some texture to this panel. It is something I never miss. I like the details and effect it brings to a card. So I am starting with white splatters. And whenever I am making a rainbow background, I always like to add dark splatters because I think it makes the colors pop even more. So here I just mixed some black soot oxide ink with water, and I am using my trusty small brush to add more splatters to my panel. So we are done with our first background. Let's put it aside, and while it is drying, we are going to work on the second background. I am using the draped ribbons stencil, and this stencil is a little bit more flimsy than the other, so even though it is attached to my sticky mat, I added pieces of washi tape to make sure that each piece of the stencil will stay in place. And just like the first background, I am starting with Yeti ink all over the panel. I removed the stencil and shifted it a little bit to the left. I put all the washi tape pieces back in place, and I am going to use the same oxide inks as the ones I used on the first panel to create beautiful draped ribbons in a rainbow order, of course. So all the inking is done. Now I am going to add the same details as before. I am starting with white ink splatters. I really love how it makes the colors pop. And then black soot ink splatters. So here's a close-up look at both panels. These are gorgeous just as they are now. We could use one of the giant greeting dies like happy birthday to you, hooray, or make a wish. Maybe in gold glitter, and the cards would be done. But I like to be extra on my cards, and for both of today's cards I am going to cut a whole bunch of bits and pieces, and before assembling everything I am going to stamp my greeting, and I didn't want it to cover too much of the flags, so that's why I am stamping it between two strings of flags. Now let's assemble a few things before popping everything on the panel. I cut the cupcake toppings out of colored cardstock, but also out of pearlescent vellum, because when I first stacked them all on top of each other with no vellum, they were kind of mixing into each other. So I thought that adding those extra pearlescent vellum pieces, it would make the toppings clearly defined. And you will see that I am going to do the same with the ice cream pieces on the other card. So I am assembling all those pieces. For the cupcake wrapper, I used the dotted paper from the pint-sized Patterns Summertime 6x6 paper pack. And after all the assembly, I will pop everything on my panel using foam squares, glue dots and liquid glue. So now let's move on to our draped ribbons panel. I am going to stack scoops of ice cream on this one. And first, I am stamping my greeting on the right side using black VersaFine ink. Now I am going to stick a scoop on each vellum piece, and then I will attach everything on my panel following the same vertical design as the cupcake card. When I make rainbow cards, I like to add gold accents, whether it be a die-cut piece, an embossed greeting. Here I die-cut the word hi as well as an exclamation point out of glitter cardstock and out of white cardstock. I am going to stick the gold glitter letters on the white ones and then pop them on the panel right above the greeting. This way we have a repetition with borders, borders on the flags, borders below each topping, and borders behind each letter. So I stuck the same gold glitter letters on the second panel. I also cut and glued 3 hearts on each panel. I think it finishes both cards pretty nicely. You can see that I added highlights and details to my die-cut pieces using a white gel pen. And now I am just adding White Blizzard Nuvo drops to each heart for that last extra sparkling touch. And that's it, our sweet rainbow stencil cards are done, and I am so happy of how they turned out. I love how bright and cheerful and happy they are. I love all the smiling faces. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks again for stopping by. Have an amazing day and see you on the next one. Bye!